Aisha Abid, and I welcome all of you to another episode of Bridge Writers in Conversation. I'm very excited today, as today we have with us Dr. Amna Cheema. Now, before we proceed with the interview, I would like to tell my viewers a little about you, ma'am. So, Dr. Amna Cheema is a PhD scholar in modern American poetry, and she received her degree from University of Leeds, UK. Currently, she's working as an assistant professor in the Institute of English Studies at the University of the Punjab. She has published multiple research articles in English literature and digital humanities. I would like to tell my viewers that Ms. Amna has a particular interest in digital humanities. She's a member of several literary as well as language societies and has participated in several talks and workshops with regards to digital humanity. Today, we shall be talking about a lot of things with Dr. Amna. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. I'm good.
Ma'am, is there anything that I've missed?
Sorry? No, I think you've said more than sufficient things about me. I think that's too much.
All right, ma'am. While going through your profile, I realized that you have a lot of interest in digital humanities. Before we talk further about that, can I know what's that particular thing that makes you think that digital humanities is a subject that needs to be positioned in BS degrees?
I think primarily it's being human, and it's about thinking largely about humanities and humanity, in terms of the service you do within the society. That always makes me think about digital humanities, because the subject is meant to serve humanity at large more than your own self. So it's something which is selfless. So considering that attribute, I think that is most needed in our society. We've become so selfish. We're so self-centered. So a field such as digital humanities would allow us to keep ourselves more humane than what we are at the moment.
All right, that's quite insightful. We'll be talking further about that. Ma'am, what made you realize the importance of digital humanity, and how do you plan to ensure the importance of digital humanities in STEM research?
Digital humanities, as I said, it's an interdisciplinary field. It's interdisciplinary, it's multidisciplinary. So when we talk about multidisciplinary, we think of other subjects which are surrounding it, and since digital humanities itself involves plurality, it's not a singular term, it's a plural noun, the phrase itself. And it incorporates all those subjects which are skirting around humanities, whether it is mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, and other so many disciplines from humanities, and even musicology for that matter. And specifically, when you're talking about science subjects, I think precisely so because, so far we knew that only science subjects, they can do quantitative research, and in humanities, we don't need quantitative research. And if there is quantitative research, then, it's much more artificial, much more prosthetic, because it has nothing to do with life. As we say, humanities is about life. So, science subjects, the way they are putting research questions, the way they are doing groundbreaking research in terms of helping humanity, in terms of helping institutions make new things which can improve living, I think humanities can also play a part in it. So, engaging with STEM subjects would involve humanities as a subject itself becoming meaningful in terms of helping mankind, in terms of bettering our lives, and in terms of contributing to modernity in which we live or what we aspire for.
If I continue with the same question and talk particularly about English literature and writing, because that's the fundamental, that's your area of research.
Yes, yes.
How would you relate that students need in BS English degree, especially? How do you think that digital humanities is going to play its role, and how it's going to ensure that students, develop more in English literature degrees?
I think it's pretty useful when it comes to English studies as well, and thinking about bachelor's degree, because students are already being trained in the bachelor's program to do research and to do ethical research. And although how much we try telling them that plagiarism is a real serious thing, it's a cardinal sin, they really don't understand the repercussions of doing that. So I think one way to curb that kind of a trend is to make them study digital humanities and apply digital humanities, because in digital humanities you cannot do a research which is plagiarized, which is not endorsing other people involved in it. You can't afford to do that, because you're making your research an open resource on the internet. And once you put there, the world is out there to see it, and you can't hide away things. So if we've grabbed something from somewhere, or we've cleverly twisted it, somebody is going to come to know about it out there, and somebody is going to penalize you for it. And obviously Google itself, when you put it on it, it's going to evaluate it, how much it is an original work that you are putting it over there, and you're continuously, let's say, engaging with it, you're improving your website or your web interface. So I think at the bachelor's level, it's a very good way to train students to be ethically, morally correct.
Excellent. I just enjoyed that perspective a lot. Um, I was going through your research articles and I realized that you've done a handful of work on Chinese, English, Punjabi, and Saraiki. Would you like to tell what were some elements of your research in these languages?
Uh, I think precisely it's Chinese. If you ask me how much I've delved into it in terms of the trend in Pakistan in learning Chinese language, I've seen that it has increased tremendously during the COVID, and that was what was surprising for me, because already we know that China is our neighbor, and we are learning their language because of CPAC, and because there are a lot of scholarships over there as well. But what happened during the COVID? The COVID should have affected that kind of inclination. That was my thinking. So when I started doing research on that, and I saw the figures, which came out of the questionnaire we gave to a lot of different people who were studying Chinese at that time, they were more eager to go to China, despite what happened and how the world was playing a blame game, and making China to be the sole culprit in all this situation. So it was surprising why people think that socially, economically, going to China is much better than going to, let's say, any other country abroad, because China is much more accessible. Even though the language is much more difficult to understand and to acquire too, it takes greater time in comparison to learning, let's say, Spanish or French for that matter. So the students do agree that it's much more difficult, but they're still on it. The motivation behind is the socio-economic factor. So even though we have CPAC and people are getting employment in Pakistan, but still there is a lot of a large chunk of the population which is still aspiring to have higher education, to have better job opportunities, to improve their living. And China seems to be a very attractive prospect. Its proximity makes it readily available to our youth. So it was interesting to note how COVID did not make a lot of difference to us and in our opinion about Chinese language, and the whole infrastructure and how Chinese are involved over here, and our students going over there and in exchange program, or through scholarships doing their PhD research. So it was interesting as far as the Chinese language was concerned, because I too think that Chinese is very difficult. I don't think so I can learn that. Probably I can learn Spanish, but I can't learn Chinese for that matter. So, it was interesting how it worked.
I see. That's thank you so much for sharing a chunk of your research with us. Uh, Also, one more thing that I noticed was that you are a part of multiple societies. Now,
Yes.
how do you think that as a teacher, how do you think that it's very important to, involve oneself in these societies, and how do you think they impact our lives?
I think, being part of these societies keeps you updated on research topics, on what the world is talking about in terms of conversations. So you're pretty much part of it. Even if you're living somewhere else and you have your own little world, but you connect with other people outside your own domain through these channels. And these societies, they are doing a lot of work. You've seen that much of it comes from the Elizabeth Bishop clan itself. People in America, the kind of research they are doing on her, and the conferences that they arrange, the topics they have each year, that keeps me updated on the research areas as well. So, I have my students who are doing research. So, if I'm not well aware of what are the recent research trends, I'm not in a good position to guide them. So that's one of the ways of doing it. And other than that, if you're talking about various groups that I follow, I think that is also for the same purpose. I follow groups which talk about American literature. I follow groups which talk about digital humanities. And the reason I do that, because, each day I find something new in their repository in terms of a research topic, in terms of a workshop being conducted, in terms of, how globally they engage with the problems, the domains themselves. So it's very interesting to keep my students updated on these different areas as well. When they ask me, I have something to tell them, and that is what satisfies me as a teacher too. If I am clueless as to, okay, fine, I'll Google it, I'll find it out, and then let you know in a couple of days. These things are bygone. You have to keep yourself smartly updated to what is going on around the world if you really want to make your place as a good teacher, I think, and also as a good researcher in this day and age.
I completely agree with that. Ma'am, as a writer, and what approach do you have writing? What do you tell your students and you yourself? What approach do you have towards writing?
See, when it comes to stylistically dealing with, let's say, a research area, I strongly believe that it has to be written in a very simple language. And I keep on telling my students, and they get surprised with this kind of a response, because when they write, let's say, complex sentences of 3 lines, 4 lines, I always penalize them and I tell them that, why can't you make smaller sentences? You'll have less grammatical problems, and you'll be able to say what you want to say with greater clarity. And I learned this thing from my own supervisor when I was doing my PhD. I thought using jargons and flurry language makes a lot of difference in our part of the world. But in their part of the world, it doesn't make a lot of difference. You don't become a good researcher if you're using flurry language or using too much of jargon. They want simplification. So my supervisor used to tell me that if you can't explain your topic and your areas that you're dealing with to an ordinary student, right, who's probably who is studying in a BS program, or he was doing a master's, or even somebody outside who's studying in high school, if that person cannot understand your topic and your area of research, you're a failure, because your research is not reaching out to those constructive minds which are going to become something in future. So satisfying me and somebody like me who is like aged and who have done a lot in life, who can understand what you're writing, is sort of effortless. So all the effort that you need to make is to understand an ordinary student, a passerby who's aware of life and its challenges, and you tell that person how your research is going to make a difference to his life. So each day or each time we used to meet, he used to tell me that. So that helped me a lot in bringing clarity of thought, and also that sort of stayed in my brain till date. It's bygone now. 2018 was the time I got my degree. I came back, so it's like saying goodbye to all the virtues and vices sort of that were exposed to me over there. But that was not the case. This idea stayed with me when I started talking to my students and saw their writing, and I used to comment on that. I used to ask them that, try to simplify it for your own self. You need to understand what you're telling me. And then I need to understand without asking you what you've written. If I need your help to tell me what you've written, then it's no use. Writing itself should speak for you, not that you should be there all the time.
Uh, okay, I do understand what you're trying to say, but it's just, I just have a question.
Yes.
When we're studying poetry, especially, something which is not barely on the surface, it is a very insightful poetry. For instance, if we talk about Yeats, or, we're talking about more complex poets. You have done your research in modern American poetry.
Yes.
So I do understand that there's a difference between writing aesthetically and then researching. Of course, these are two
Yes.
different things, and they
Two
serve
different
a
ways.
different purpose.
Yes.
But a person who's studying in a BS degree and they're on, a very minor level, a very small level of writing, how do you think that the person is going to grow as a researcher as well as a writer, while keeping intact that your research should be simple but your writing should be more aesthetically pleasing? How do you differentiate
Yes.
between that?
Yes. I think there are different modes of writing. So when it comes to research, a writer too, a writer, by a writer, I mean a creative writer. A creative writer also finds it difficult to become an academic writer and write a research. And I have talked to many poets when I was in Leeds, and we had a chance to talk to different poets who used to come there and, deliver a talk on certain areas that they were writing. So we used to ask them that how difficult it is, because you're creative writers, you're writing poetry, let's say, or any prose kind of writing. And then you're teaching in institutions as well, and you are also conducting research and patronizing it. So they themselves agree that it's very difficult to keep these two things aside, and they have to come out of one mode to become the other. So you have to draw lines somewhere, because a research article cannot be a creative writing. It has a different approach, and creative writing is purely primarily beginning with that aesthetic delight that the writer himself engages with. And it's after the writer himself, the poet himself, or the novelist, the dramatist himself engages with it, that it reaches out to an audience, and then the audience has a reaction to what has been written down. So both have their own strengths and different ways of approach, and they both can benefit mankind in their own ways. We can't say that the research benefits mankind and a creative writing would not benefit mankind in any way. So that is not the case, because as you must have read in my the CV I shared with you, I mentioned that my interest is moving towards code poetry. So I realized, when I was reading poems again and again, I realized how people found poetry to be a coded form of writing. So it was aesthetic, creative as a piece of writing, but it was also, providing a platform for research. And it was a code in itself, which was actually leading us to, let's say, different research questions or solutions to certain problems in the society. So, it's just the lens. You keep on changing the lens, and that lens changes according to your research question, according to your problem, according to the institution within the society you wish to engage with. So I think that what varies your answers to, and that is what makes your one writing beneficial sometimes than the other.
Thanks so much for answering that question, ma'am. Ma'am, what's your take on poetry? How do you see it different than other genres of literature?
Poetry is enigmatic. It's a mystery that you need to solve. So it's much more like a coded manual that you start decoding, and you find wonders in that. So that's what fascinates me, and that's one of the reasons why I did my PhD in poetry, because I was also always fascinated with the idea that how writing so short and clipped, you can convey a lot, which probably a novel does in 300 pages or a drama does in 4 acts. So you just read a poem and you gather all that information in terms of factual data and also in terms of aestheticism and in terms of answering, let's say, certain social problems that other texts are also doing. But you just gather those meanings, through a page or so. So I think poetry, I feel, is the smartest way in this day and age to savor the aesthetic side of it, in terms of literature or a literary text, and to engage with it in terms of finding solutions to the problems in the society as well.
All right. Okay, so my next question is also regarding literature and writing. Now, you have studied the literature that has already been published, but for
Yeah,
the writers who are now in the process of becoming a writer,
yeah.
what do you think can be, how do you think a writer can better himself according to the society? Of course, I know that the world is moving really fast. At the same time, we're also respecting the process of literature and how the beauty of literature in some way. What would you advise students or creative writers to include in their writing? Because of course we have to move with the world while keeping the beauty of literature. What literature should come and what betterments should be done in literature?
I think, when you talk about poetry or literature at large, these are forms of expression. Just like we have art forms, other than, in terms of making a painting, a sketch, or you make a sculpture. So, literature is also a similar kind of an expression. It has a greater audience, it has a greater impact on the society because, it's not harsh. And even when it's harsh, it's so muted, it's so indirect that through that sense of indirection, it tells you a lot, and it sort of highlights the problems in the society. It also provides you with solutions. It also reforms you in many ways.
Definitely.
So, and keeping yourself abreast with the times in which we are living. Of course, we cannot deny the fact that we are living and breathing in a technological age. So, no matter how much we try to evade it and say that, no, 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 this is not my cup of tea, I can't engage with it, we are actually engaging with it in one way or the other. Whether we are using mobile phones or we're just looking at Facebook, we're scrolling upwards and downwards, we are in one way or the other looking for contacts and engagements which are, opening up our minds in terms of, certain dilemmas which we face worldwide or problems at large. Whether you talk about poverty, you talk about corruption, you talk about water crisis, you talk about recent debates in terms of, the Black Lives Matter, and you talk about intersectionality, right? So, and you talk about digital studies, how they are making us human or non-human, or we are living in a post-human age. So, how does it affect us? All these things, which are very much there, if we feel for them and we think we can engage with them and we have something better to offer, I think literature is the best way to express it. You write a prosaic piece, you write a poem, or you write a novella, or you come up with a drama, and you perform it somewhere. It would gather a lot of audience, even if the audience is not there virtually on the screen. You put it on YouTube, and there's so many people who are looking at it and auditing it and visually seeing how it creates an impact on them. And the impact sometimes is lasting, and people talk about it for quite some time. So literature is for all ages and for all times. Although humanities is in crisis worldwide because we don't have a lot of scholarships, we don't have a lot of funding in comparison to STEM subjects. That's a fact, because we feel that in STEM subjects we can create something instantly. Over a period of months, we can build a car, we can make a machine, we can probably come up with a medication which is true. It's tangibly there. But what can literature do? Literature can't do anything instantly, although it does, but the impact itself is not visibly there. So, in order to visualize that impact, if we engage with science subjects, I think literature would have its, tag right there, telling the world out there that, this is what literature has done for you.
That's very insightful and definitely. All right. So coming to the bridge is basically a platform that is trying to connect writers all over the world in this fast-paced world. How do you see the bridge as a project?
I think it's wonderful. It's amazing the way you've put it together. I just like the very word bridge itself. It's so attractive because it makes you think of the plurality we live in. It makes you think of the inclusivity because we are not talking about our region. We're talking about the world, and we live in a global world, and creativity spills over everywhere. And there are many people out there who have something to offer you, and it's so interesting that you find a platform which can connect people and which can bring them on a similar platform where there is no difference of class, of creed, of color, of race, right? So I think that's amazing in this day and age when we are facing crisis with these different compartmentalizations all over the world. So no matter how much we talk about liberalization, we do have problems, and the problems do pertain to the color and the race, and we are constantly being differentiated, or we are ourselves segregating people on the basis of that. So a platform which invites neutrality and which is purely for creativity, the bridge itself, I feel it's just creativity oozing out anywhere, and you get hold of it. So I think that's the beauty, that's the spirit behind this whole project, and it's really good. It attracted me, of course, when I looked through it. The way you were conducting interviews, the way you were engaging with people, a lot of people I didn't know, I come to know through your platform. So I think that's wonderful. And we really need it in this day and age, as I said, that where we have conveniently indulged in hate speech on social media, character assassination. It's something very easy and convenient for us. So, amidst all this, appreciating people, from wherever they belong and whatever size and color and age they are, I think it's amazing, and it sort of changes our lens and approach of looking at creativity itself. I am not going to judge you for the way you dressed up, the way you appear to me in terms of my social cultural lens, but I am going to look at you through that digital platform which is exhibiting neutrality, which is there, which is touchable, but which is not confined to your culture, your space, your society. I think that's the beauty of it.
Thank you so much for your kind words, ma'am. Ma'am, you spoke about neutrality.
Yes.
I really want you to shed some more light on it, on how, especially after COVID and coming to it an entirely digital race, how do you see the need for neutrality in the world right now?
I think neutrality invites inclusivity, right? When you're neutral, you are ready to embrace other people around you, people beyond your culture, your society. You are ready to embrace other genders, because gender issue is also a very pertinent issue, which
It
has
is.
always been there. And we see that in this day and age in all the societies, when it comes to workplaces, even when it comes to creativity, we know that it's coming from a man, and this other thing is coming from a woman, right? And therefore we sort of engage in those bifurcations that, here's a male poet and here's a female poet, but they're largely poets. I really feel strongly that we need to educate ourselves, and using your platform right now, I would like to share that, why can't we think of gender roles when we come outside this, our own convenient space of homes and our domains and our families, why can't we keep that aside? And why can't we think that where we are working, whether it is working for towards a creative goal or towards doing research or any other responsibility that you fulfill, why can't we see women, and I'm going to talk about both the genders. So I feel that men should start looking at women not as their mothers, as their wives, as their sisters, right, as their girlfriends. And if women start looking at men not as their fathers, not as their husbands, not as their brothers, not as their boyfriends or good friends, whatever, we will have a much better creative space to engage with art, with humanities, with larger problems in the society, rather than the problems that we create for ourselves in terms of these barriers, which sort of give us a lens to appreciate something and not to appreciate something because this is coming from a man and this is coming from a woman. So I think neutrality begins from your own home and then your workspace where you're working, and then globally on a platform like yours. You know, when we look at different interviews being conducted, when we're auditing them, we're listening to people how they have struggled in their lives, let's say with the kind of engagements they had. I think we need to appreciate that rather than once again looking at their gender, their class, their the society they belong to, the culture they engage to, they are part of, and last but not the least, the gender itself. So here is a man and here's a woman saying this and saying that. I think that is one of the greatest barriers I see in terms of uh, you know exhibiting an environment which is very, very healthy in terms of creativity, in terms of research, in terms of giving equal opportunities to people out there who can write well, who can sing well, who can create wonderful masterpieces for you. So I think the environment itself needs to be fixed in many ways. And one of the ways of creating neutrality is to start looking outside these rigid social compartments, which we should engage with when we come to our homes and when we are in our personal spaces, but not when we are outside. I think we are just the same outside. We're all working. We are not men and women. But I'm so attracted to Julia Kristeva's idea of the speaking beings. I totally agree with her that we are all speaking beings. We speak, we express, and we express through our language, we express through the kind of things we write, the art we create. So I think we need to be valued for that, but not for the compartments in which we are already put into.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was very insightful, and I love your approach towards literature, and it was so good to have you here.
Same here. It was wonderful talking to you. And thank you for providing me this platform to express my opinions. It really feels great that there's somebody out there who is listening to you and who has time and patience to understand what you're saying, because we don't have time for each other these days.
I agree. I agree. But it was such an insightful conversation. Thank you so much, ma'am. I
Thank
hope
you
that
so
our
much.
audience also enjoyed our conversation as much as I did sitting here. It was definitely very, very insightful. In the end, I would like to remind my viewers that Bridge is an absolute platform that is for amateur as well as published writers, and there is an abundance of creative writing challenges on our website. So our website is www.bridgethenations.com. And stay tuned to our YouTube channel for more insightful conversations. With that, I would like to say my goodbye. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much.